Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I'm your host, Hilmarie Hutchison, and today's guest is the perfect example of what happens when discipline meets purpose. Jazzmarr Ferguson is a professional basketball player, mental performance coach, and youth mentor whose journey from the courts of Louisville, Kentucky to international arenas is as inspiring as it is impactful. Over a 15-year pro career, Jazz has played across Italy, France, Australia, and now the Middle East. But beyond the game, he's made it his mission to build champions, not just in sports, but in life. Through his mentorship platform, Reps with Jazz, he helps young people and executives alike build unshakable confidence, discipline, and a winning mindset. Jazz, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's start with your background. As I mentioned in the intro, you grew up in Louisville. What was it like growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, and how did basketball become your path?
Well, growing up in Louisville was a very huge environment as far as exposure. It was inner city, it was crime, violence, and exposure to all things that most adults don't get exposed to until they're at adult age. It's easy to get caught into a system of crime and violence or for your attention to sway that way. Basketball was always an outlet for me to go in the opposite direction of the environment that I grew up in. I wasn't a great player, but I always was in love with the game, and it gave me the ability to really focus on something and give it all of my attention to get out of that environment that I was growing up in.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a pretty difficult and rough start in life, and it could have been so easy to get sucked onto the wrong path. But as you said, you had such a love for basketball. You also mentioned there that you weren't the most talented player early on. What is it that kept you going, and how did you use mindset to close the gap?
So it was very easy for me to understand that I was not as good of a player as I wanted to be at an early age because I had a few peers who developed very quickly as adolescents. And I was a late bloomer, which means physically I didn't develop as quick as some of my peers. So I was a little bit behind. I wasn't as strong. I wasn't as fast. I wasn't as talented. And I think what I had to do was use a measuring stick between myself and my peers when I started to do things that I know they weren't doing, like waking up doing 100 push-ups before school and working on my ball handling to strengthen my handle and my shooting ability. I knew that my friends were not doing that. And what happened was I started to see improvement in myself. Once I saw a little bit of that improvement, I became really obsessed with it. In a span of 2 years, I was able to catch up to my peers and also kind of move further ahead than they were because of that work ethic and process that I had. So the mindset aspect of that was just becoming obsessed with a work ethic. Once I saw a little bit of improvement, I wanted to continue to see that growth and development.
You were willing to do things others were not doing. So in simple terms, you were just working harder to make up for that talent gap. And then, as you say, once you could see the results of that, the fruit that was bearing, then that would inspire you to continue along that path. So that's excellent. After college, you played professionally in Europe and in Australia. How did you end up here in the Middle East?
Europe and Australia were great for me, and I think most of my career will always be reflective in that aspect. How I ended up here in the Middle East, my wife proposed to me basically to move to the Middle East several times. And the third time that she pushed me to be open to moving here was for her to accept a job opportunity and me to kind of look at my career in a transition state. I had went back to school to regain the certifications that I needed to start my business, along with still being a professional athlete at the moment. I was able to just take a chance on establishing myself in a business sense And once I got here, I kind of hit the ground running in both aspects, establishing my business and establishing relationships in the professional aspects. So I certainly plan to finish my career here in the Middle East. And I think for most American players, that have the skill set that I have, finishing our careers in the Middle East is a very attainable option that a lot of guys exercise. So I think with my style of play and who I am as a player, with my reputation, playing in the Middle East is a great place for me to kind of go out on my own terms the next 3 or 4 years of playing.
That sounds excellent. Before we talk about your transition into coaching, I just would like to ask you, what were some of the defining moments in your 15-year basketball journey?
Oh, well, as a professional, I would say immediately as a rookie in Australia, I was able to win a championship with a team that had no expectations to have any success. We were basically what they call a Cinderella story. And I was pretty much the catalyst for that team solely first based off of my mindset. My approach was to bring a winning mindset and attitude to this team. And gradually, everyone on board started to gravitate towards that mindset. I would say another defining moment for me in my career would be my third year playing in Italy, where I was able to really establish myself and my career, gain some sponsorships within the country, and really be able to become the best version of myself as an athlete. I think I was at the peak of my athletic ability. I had acquired enough IQ in the sport and experience in the sport to really be able to impose my will and play at a very high level. And I would say the third defining moment would be transitioning from 9 years in Italy to playing the past 3 years in France and being able to have a reflective part of my career where I've been able to change my diet, change my approach, listen to my body more, and really become more of a mentor towards younger players while still performing at a high level.
Lovely. So you had those different phases in your career. I love your Cinderella story. And again, how your mindset played such a big role in accomplishing something that no one was expecting you to accomplish. So absolutely fantastic. Now let's change direction and talk about your transition from player to coach. What inspired Reps with Jazz and what's the mission behind it?
When you're an athlete, there's always a moment in your career where you understand that there's going to have to be a transition. So, what I wanted to do was assess myself, and I wanted to be able to apply my life skills that I've acquired in 36 years and find another passion that I was able to just live my life with and for purposefully. And what I landed on was utilizing my mindset has always been something that has been a skill set. I realized that this was a skill set several times, just when younger players have gravitated towards me and asked questions about my mindset. I really started to understand that my mindset has been the catalyst for my entire career. The second major reason for me using reps with jazz as my mission and my purpose is when I decided to go back to school and get my life coaching certification. I was in a school with everyone in the school were career driven people. Everyone had a first career, and this was something that they were doing on the side to gain a certification. The way that people looked at me when they had conversations with me, when we had live streams, and when I had practice coaching sessions with them, I understood that the mindset and the pace and the level of focus that I had in comparison to my peers and the other people in the class, they looked at me like I was an outlier because I was working at a different pace. I was focused on a different level. And I again understood that I was relying on my mindset to drive me in a way that most people just don't have the capacity to do. So I solely kind of realized that this is my mission, and this is something that I am going to be great at, even better than I am as an athlete.
I love that. Fantastic. So even when you were making that transition from being a player, having to decide what's your new passion, what's your new purpose, your mindset, it all comes back to that from when you were young, that's carried you through your whole career and again into this new path that you're on. So it's always been about having the right mindset. You have a mantra that says reps remove all doubt. And that's so powerful. Can you unpack what that means for athletes and non-athletes alike?
Absolutely. Reps remove all doubt is applicable in every aspect of your life. When I want to be connected and aligned with people who have some form of ambition. So when you have good habits, you have to continuously apply those good habits to your life when you want to get the results. And those habits are repetition. So reps is short for repetition. When you want to build your confidence, you don't just do something that makes you happy one day and then your happiness is sustained. You have to continuously work on things that you want to improve on. And when your confidence is low, the only way you improve your confidence level, your vision, your habits, your relatability to ambitious people is you have to surround yourself with those people. You have to constantly have a level of sustainability with your habits, and that is all reps. So when I say reps remove all doubt, it's something that I live by. It's something that I will always be able to unpack in a way where I can use myself as an example of the level of consistency is why I carry myself in such a confident way, especially on a basketball court or especially in a realm of helping people and helping build people up, because I can constantly and consistently have the energy and the desire to do that for people.
You certainly are an excellent role model when you tell people that it is the reps that make the difference, building those good habits, continuously working at your goals. You prove that throughout your whole life. So you're speaking from experience. And I love that it applies not only to athletes, but anybody can apply this and improve their lives because they just learn to take the next step, follow the habit, and just keep repeating that same thing over and over. What does mental performance coaching involve, and how does it differ when working with teenagers versus adults?
Working with teenagers is different than working with adults, because when you're working with teenagers, I want to focus more on the growth and development aspect. I think in this day and age, there are a few aspects of teenage life that are glaring and can really skew a teenager's mind in one way or the other. First, it's social pressure. A kid can open his phone, and if he's a young athlete, he can look at someone that is the exact same age as him, that is ranked top two or three in the world, and become discouraged at how advanced this person is. So, what I want to do is, I want to push young athletes and young leaders to focus on the process. And sometimes when you're battling social pressure, when you're battling pressure from your parents, or when you don't know how to be resilient, it's hard to not fall into comparison. It's hard to not be discouraged when you feel like you're good at something, but you see someone else at another level. So I try to focus on the growth and development aspect with teenagers and young leaders, because I think it's a very, very important aspect to nurture those relationships and help them build those habits. With adults, the mental performance aspect is usually for people who are in athletic roles, because I work with a couple professional athletes, or people who have ambition to excel in their fields. Whether you're a manager that has ambition to get a promotion, whether you're someone who wants to lose weight, or someone who wants to even transition, I focus on the aspect of first finding clarity for these people because there can be many external factors that just don't allow people to focus on what their goals are. Then we build out roadmaps to something that is sustainable for and realistic for people to follow, individually tailored for these people. And the mental performance aspect is me holding them accountable, me helping them really take steps towards achieving those goals, and then helping people realize the best versions of themselves.
I like how you said to first, when working with adults, that you first help them to find clarity on what their goals are. Then you help them to build that roadmap to what is attainable and what is doable, with you there to support them and help them with accountability. What are some of the common mindset blocks you see in young people today, and how do you help them overcome those?
Oh, for sure. Lack of confidence, comparison, the inability to have resilience. And I think another important one is understanding how to bounce back from a loss, not being able to use a loss as a lesson and letting it affect you in a lingering or long term way. It's not so easy to be a young athlete or a youth when you have so much at your disposal. And also, I would think a huge mindset block is the inability to focus. We have people, adults, who can't focus more than 45 seconds. So when when you see that trickle down effect to students who have the inability to focus, we need people that first of all have the ability to focus and then know how to teach or inspire or persuade people to focus in a way that is useful and effective.
Do you think that the difficulty to focus, because as you rightly said, this is not just limited to young people, this is something adults also struggle with. Is that because of the fast-paced world that we live in and that there are so many distractions around us? You mentioned the mobile phone earlier. It's just so easy to just scroll and get sidetracked by things like that.
Absolutely. I think the inability to not be distracted is the biggest obstacle of people not having a level of focus, because sometimes you can meet an ambitious person who's tried a million different things, a million different avenues and lanes, and they just can't seem to follow through on what their vision is. Well, that is usually based on a lack of focus. The mobile phone, there's so many things trying to take your attention, to grasp your attention. You have so many options that having the inability to focus just becomes a normal thing. And it also allows people to be complacent. It helps people not ever realize their full potential. And it garners regret. It garners the what if factor. It makes people feel unfulfilled after so much time has been wasted and you lose that window of opportunity that you may have had.
Yes, and also as you mentioned, comparing themselves to others all the time, because it's so easy to open the phone and see what someone else is doing. You speak at schools and you run workshops. What kind of impact are you seeing from those sessions, especially when it comes to confidence and discipline?
I realize the impact that I have with the youth when I get the feedback from them. Normally, they add me on social media and they write me messages, or I have kids writing me, asking me for advice, just helping them build themselves up in a way that is very fulfilling for me. Speaking at schools is one of my greatest passions at the moment because I feel like I'm a person that has relatability with the youth. Because when I've played on some of the teams in Europe, some of these young, talented professionals do play on the professional teams. And they sometimes are in high school, early stages of university. So I'm working with the youth on a daily basis for the last 7 or 8 years as who they label me as the OG. I'm the OG that you can look up to, but I'm still slightly cool enough so we can have a conversation. And I think the influence that I've been able to have in speaking and doing workshops is only going to grow because it's a passion of mine. And the reception that I get from the schools and the students are something that is really, really incomparable.
That's fantastic. I love that, the OG. And I love that young people have someone like you who's giving them the attention, who's helping them to find the right path. Because as you say, you're probably cooler than their parents. So they're probably more likely to listen to you and take advice from you than from your parents. So it is a fantastic service that you're giving to them. What's next for you and Reps with Jazz? Any new programs or goals or plans in the pipeline?
Yes, I would love to continue to grow Reps with Jazz because I think that we are now starting to gain some momentum in the Middle Eastern region. People are starting to understand that Reps with Jazz is a serious company that wants to create lasting impact and lasting change in many people's lives. Not just the student athletes, but young leaders, adults who are ambitious. And I want to integrate myself into the school systems as well. I've recently just confirmed my first keynote for a basketball and corporate event in Italy, and I will also be doing a workshop there. I plan on organizing some workshops in and around the Dubai area just to grow the brand and get my name out there more for Reps with Jazz. So I think we're in the early stages of the growth part of the company, but I certainly plan for Reps with Jazz to be a household name in the Middle Eastern region.
And knowing your mindset, knowing how you take things on, I have no doubt that it will be a success. And I'm so happy to hear that you've already got some keynotes lined up, some workshops lined up. That's absolutely exciting. Now we've come to the segment of our show where I will ask you some rapid fire questions, our version of a game show. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
The favorite court you've played on?
Peace and Friendship Arena in Greece.
Lovely. A go-to mantra that keeps you focused?
Reps remove all doubt.
I love it. What do you drink before a big game? Coffee, smoothie, water, or something else?
Smoothie with green energy tea.
A book or movie that changed your mindset?
Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty.
In one word, what does discipline mean to you?
Consistency.
Yeah, those reps, I love it. What is one thing you do every day, no matter how busy you get?
I pray and I kiss my son.
Lovely. Well, thank you for playing along. That wasn't too difficult. Now I would like to ask you our signature green pill question. Could you share an inspiring or life-changing experience that you have gone through, your green pill moment?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked this question because I haven't gotten to tell this story much. I was 18 years old, first year in university, and I was a young, skinny kid who was just finding myself as a player. It was summertime before the semester started, and we had a 75-year-old man who was our study hall and academic advisor for the team. He had been connected to many professional athletes and universities before. His name was Henry. I don't remember his last name, regretfully, but he was 75 years old at the time. And he drew a liking to me because I was always the first kid to the gym and I was always the last kid to leave the gym after study hall. I was a gym rat. And one day, Mr. Henry came to me and he said, he looked me completely in my eyes. And he said to me, Jazz, if you continue to work like this, you will be a first team All American when you're a senior. Every single day after that conversation that I had with Mr. Henry, when I approached the gym, all I could think about was becoming a first team All American. A first team All American means that you are one of the top 5 players in America at the collegiate level. And I obsessed over him seeing me fully and speaking those affirmations into me. Fast forward 3 years ahead, I was a first team All American and I had NBA tryouts. And all I could think about was if I didn't have this conversation with Coach Henry, I may not have been as good as I am because at the collegiate level, I needed something to affirm that I was good enough to play at that level. Now that I look back at my career, I think this is for sure one of the significant green pill moments for me because I am able to do now for young athletes with one conversation Mr. Henry did for me.
I love that story. Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's amazing how Mr. Henry took that interest in you and those few words sparked that vision, that goal in your mind to see the possibility that's ahead of you. And that just spurred you on. So it is incredible the impact that adults can have on young people. And I love that you shared that. So love that you are, as you said, paying it forward now by impacting the lives of other young athletes. So taking that interest in them can make and can change someone's life, as Henry's words to you changed your life. What a beautiful story. Thank you so much. Jazz, thank you so much for joining me today. Your story is a powerful example of how resilience, discipline, and the right mindset can turn obstacles into opportunities. Before we close, where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about Reps with Jazz?
An Instagram page that is Reps with Jazz. And then I have my personal Instagram, which is jazz_Ferguson. I also have a website that is repswithjazz.co, where I have an explanation of who I am, what I do, my services, where you can book me, and how you can connect with me via WhatsApp or via email. So Instagram, WhatsApp, or my website. Also, you can find me on LinkedIn at Jazz Ferguson.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Matrix Green Pill podcast. If you found this episode inspiring, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We always appreciate your support. Until next time, keep doing the reps, and remember, the champion's mindset is built, not born.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.